Good morning.
Looking good. We're good with this being pinned. It's taped underneath, but do you think we need a pin on this side? Yes. Okay, that's what I thought.
Don't want to take chances.
Yep.
Great, Steve.
Thank you. She's pulling in?
Yeah. Stretched out finally, she's like, we're not going back. Rob Foley, that's where Hughes went down there. Hughes went down to the area. She was just homesick, Mr. Mom. He came back here being lieutenant.
Check, 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 check.
Everyone went, no, yeah.
There's another handmade one over there if someone
okay.
wants it.
Where do you want us?
Yeah. So I think that like this can be like one speaker and then like a row of
Okay,
members.
well.
So I think like if we're like 6 or 10 feet back, that's perfect. Perfect. I can also
Okay.
take a side. Which one? Which one do you prefer? Actually, you know what? I think that. Yeah, I'll do it on this side. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right.
Make sure they're not upside down and backwards.
I like the variety
So that the sign of distress might be.
Okay.
It's our
I
only
don't
kind
think I
of
can take
sign.
this. All right.
I know I'm trying.
Ask a few more people to be behind this podium.
You
Okay.
can grab that handmade one on the bench too, if
Yeah.
desired.
On the count of 3.
Take them off when we're ready. We're with C40 cities, so we work with mayors all around the world on climate, and we just had a big delegation of mayors at our summit in Rio that we did on the COP. So when I heard about this event, I was like, they couldn't go to Brazil, but we can go to them.
Yeah, that's really
That
nice.
seems like a good thing to do.
Awesome. What's your name?
I'm Kate.
Daniel. Nice.
Daniel, nice to meet you.
I'm with the Religious Action Company.
Um,
Yeah, we do all of our climate stuff. Awesome to meet you.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm Nidhi. I'm also
You're Katie?
Nidhi.
Katie? Okay, awesome. Great to meet you.
I'm Katie. I'm with NRDC.
Oh, awesome. Cool. I'm familiar with their work.
Yeah, we're kind of everywhere. Yeah, I can imagine you do.
What do you do for NRDC?
I am on our government affairs team. I do a lot of our environmental health work, so toxics, drinking water, climate adaptation, so like flood insurance, resilience, wildlife, smattering of things. Yeah, keep it fun, keep it interesting.
100%. We pretty much just do like make polluters pay. Right
Nice.
now. In the climate world, which we have state organizations too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of momentum in the States right
In
now.
the states there is, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's like what we're doing is that I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's still getting ramped up,
Right.
that is for sure.
But it's about keeping up the
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
I was like, you should come over.
making sure.
Yeah, no. I think we need this for like 2, 3, 4 years and then build the fund.
Exactly.
They're embellished.
Just gotta keep it on
I
people's
think
minds.
Mark and
Yeah.
Andy,
Exactly.
like there's a first wave that are there
Support
this
them.
week.
Yeah.
Gaza children is on your hands. The blood of Palestinian people on your hands. Your legacy is genocide. The blood of the children of Gaza is on your hands. Genocide is genocide.
Oh, here you are. Hi, Kathy.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Jared is here already? Thank you. I think we have a couple other folks. Oh, here. Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you. Hi, how are you? Hi.
How are you?
What, oh, you all came from that way.
Hello. Oh my gosh, what a great color.
Holy.
Hey, Mitchell, it's nice to see you back in heels. You're back to full strength.
My husband noticed that last night. I saw Nancy Lee was on.
Good morning.
Thank you. Oh, good morning, everyone. Thanks to our colleagues led by Congresswoman Doris Matsui in the Sustainable Energy Environmental Coalition for their ongoing commitment to confronting what I believe is the defining challenge of our generation, of our time, the climate crisis. We come together today because the world is gathering at COP30 in Brazil. Leaders are convening, countries are making commitments, scientists are urging action. Yet the United States is not fully present with a full engaged delegation, sending the wrong signal at a moment when our leadership matters more than ever. Doris and I, Congresswoman Matsui and I are proud that our governor is there, Gavin Newsom, leading some of the activities of the governors on this important action, as he did when he was mayor. Mayors and governors understand what this means to their communities, and they have taken action. as opposed to the Republicans in Congress who have always resisted. They have always resisted. When we went to Denmark in our first COP that I led as speaker, the Republicans came and resisted, denied climate crisis. Other times they have prevented us from having delegations, including now. Because of it's not just because of the government shutdown, but also because we have not been able to get cooperation from the Republicans for us to have a bipartisan delegation to go. Yesterday I had the privilege of going to the funeral of Jane Goodall. Every eulogy that was presented, and they were all inspiring, was about her desire, her willpower, her commitment to saving God's creation. It was very religious. It was very, as I said, inspiring, but a constant challenge to the conscience of all of us to protect God's creation for the children. It's a health issue, clean air, clean water. It's an economic issue, good to be competitive with green technologies globally. It's a defense, a security issue. It's a security issue because issues like drought and famine and all that cause migration, which also becomes a security issue for many reasons. And when you see the encroachment of deserts, the drying up of rivers, all the things that are happening because of climate, severe storms and the rest, you know that we have important work to do. And so it is a moral issue to leave this planet in better shape for future generations. And that is what has been I was with President Obama when we were in Denmark, some of us together there. Now, our guests who are going to be speaking this morning have had their experience both in Congress and before. I'm happy that we're joined by Jared Hoffman, who came to Congress with a full resume from the state legislature and otherwise on this subject. He is the chair, he will be the chair of the Natural Resources Committee. Kathy Castor was the former chair of the Climate Crisis Committee and really produced the IRA. We're very grateful to her for that. Doris Matsui, as I mentioned, is the co-chair of the Sustainable Energy and Environmental Coalition, SEEK, and again, member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. You'll hear from them. And then Sean Casten, who before he came to Congress in the private sector was a leader, and he understands how to bring the private, nonprofit, and public sector together on this important issue. Representative Ansari was a representative to a COP in her own profession before she came to the Congress, and brings considerable experience to the issue here, because it has to be about everyone together, public, private, nonprofit. We're also going to be joined by some other members we'll acknowledge as they come. But what I want to say is when I became speaker the first time, my flagship issue was the climate crisis. As I said, I saw it as a health, economic, security, and moral issue. We established a climate crisis committee, a select committee on the climate, and we produced the Waxman-Markey legislation. It did not pass the Senate, but it was a banner piece of legislation which we took to the COP countries. Heads of state said, "How did you all get that passed?" Because it was so remarkable. Again, we had some bipartisanship at that time, but that has dwindled now. So again, as they gather there, so sad that the United States of America, one of the biggest economy in the world and one of the leading emitters in the world, is not there to again protect God's creation. I do believe that this planet is God's creation, and we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards of it for the benefit of our country, but certainly for the children. We've seen reactions in Louisiana after Katrina to see how the community responded in a way that recognized the relationship that's just one example of the relationship between the climate crisis and intensification of storms and the rest. So it's with great, shall we say, sense of responsibility, but also pride in the work that our House Democrats have been doing on this issue that I yield now to the future chair of the. We're very proud as a Californian to have him as coming to be the future chair of the human resources. Excuse me, not the human resources, but they are human resources. The Natural Resources Committee of the Congress, Jared Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Well, thank you, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, and thanks, folks, for being here. I want to start by thanking Speaker Emerita Pelosi for her steadfast leadership on climate action for so many years. Before I got to Congress, this is something where she has brought passion and moral clarity and policy chops and everything you want to see in a leader. The folks behind me would have been a fantastic congressional delegation to the Belém Climate Conference this week. That's where we were supposed to be. This would have been my fourth time at a climate conference with Speaker Pelosi. And it's an important moment, I think, for the world and for the United States. Here's the thing about the climate crisis. It's not going away. It might get pushed off the front page on any given day or week by any number of scandals and any various type of corruption, any disgrace that Donald Trump and his Republican enablers in Congress will visit to the front pages, as we've seen just this week. But the climate crisis is not going away. And honestly, I think one of the big scandals that should be on the front page is the way Donald Trump and our Republican colleagues in Congress have surrendered American leadership in this moment, where right now in Brazil for the past week, heads of state and dignitaries have been transported in beautiful state-of-the-art Chinese electric vehicles around Brazil. That tells you a lot about what's going on right now in the absence of the kind of national climate action leadership that we should be sending to Brazil. But the world continues to understand the difference between Donald Trump and the American people. Climate action from America continues even this week in Brazil. There's a reason that my governor, Gavin Newsom, is being welcomed as kind of a rock star in Brazil this week. The world still needs and wants American leadership. And unfortunately, the consequence of Donald Trump pulling the United States delegation out at the federal level is just that China is going to get a few more of these amazing opportunities that the United States ought to be leading on. But we're not going away, just like the climate crisis is not going away. Climate action leadership at the national level is not going to stop. We will continue to engage with parliamentarians around the world. We will do our best to communicate with our colleagues, even in Brazil. We're super proud of what's happening at the subnational level with states and local governments, tribes. So many leaders from the United States are carrying the message to Brazil this week that America is still in, and we will do our part to do that as well, even though Donald Trump and our Republican colleagues are going to try to stop us at every turn. So I think that is the message here, that the climate crisis is still with us. Climate action and climate leadership will continue with some of these amazing leaders that I'm with here today. And I'm going to hand off to one of them right now, and that is my colleague Kathy Castor from Florida, who was such an amazing leader during two different Democrat-led Congresses where she chaired the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. She led us through to developing really the policy blueprint for climate action in the Biden administration. I'm so proud of that work and so grateful for her leadership. Kathy Castor.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Rep. Huffman and Speaker Emerita Pelosi and all of our colleagues. Let's face it, right now it's about the affordability squeeze. and tackling the climate crisis can help us lower costs for hardworking Americans. Yes, we have an eye on the International Climate Conference going on right now in Brazil, and this is the year that marks the 10-year anniversary of the Paris Agreement. That was the agreement where just about every country on the planet agreed to cut climate pollution in order to avoid the worst impacts and the escalating costs of the heating climate. And the House Democrats, and especially the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition, most states, most local communities, businesses large and small, environmental justice organizations, scientists, religious organizations, all remain committed to that goal. Even in the face of Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress turning a blind eye to the growing costs and escalating catastrophic events that are impacting us. It's just 1 year ago that my community was devastated by 2 back-to-back hurricanes. And if you don't think that that's a cost issue, you're wrong, as people try to repair their homes and their lives and deal with property insurance and the cost of rebuilding. And as climate pollution increases, I just want to say to everyone that's like, oh, this is an environmental issue, it's an esoteric issue. No. The climate crisis isn't just about the weather. It is about your wallet. Household electricity prices are up 10% this year. 1 in 3 households are cutting back on basic necessities like groceries to afford their energy bills. 3 in 4 Americans, polls tell us, are concerned with their utility bills increasing, and they should be, because at least 21 utilities have either raised or proposed higher rates that will go into effect within the next 2 years. And unfortunately, the Trump administration is not helping. They're making it worse. They're canceling clean energy projects that would make our electric grid more resilient to extreme weather like hurricanes and quickly bring more cheap energy onto the grid. Instead of embracing cleaner, cheaper energy, President Trump is forcing old polluting coal plants to keep operating past their retirement dates. And there are estimates that that is going to cost Americans $3 billion more. At the same time, the Trump tariffs are making it much more expensive to upgrade our grid, driving up costs for poles and wires, substations and transformers. And then Republicans here in the Congress, I know we're in a healthcare crisis as well. And we've been talking about that for months, especially because of the big ugly bill, and the impact on health care to American families has been front and center. But it is the same for electric bills. The big ugly bill cut cost-saving energy tax credits that help our neighbors buy solar panels and batteries and install insulation. In the Tampa Bay area alone, my hometown, those tax credits were attracting more than $12 billion in investment, leading to more than 12,000 new jobs. But the Trump administration and the GOP here in Congress have taken a hatchet to that. They're ripping away federal funds from organizations that would have lowered household energy bills through low-cost solar, energy efficiency, and home energy rebates. You can't make this up. Right? You really can't. So in the face of significant headwinds, Sikh and millions of Americans, we remain clear-eyed and committed to delivering on our climate goals and moving to develop new policies to lower cost and build a thriving economy. Clean energy reached its second strongest quarter in the beginning of this year before the Trump policies took hold. $10 billion in private investment, clean energy jobs were expanding faster than the rest of the nation's workforce. There are now more than 3.6 million clean energy workers. They account for 82% of all new energy jobs in 2024. And at the end of the day, clean energy is still cheaper and faster to deploy. Clean energy accounted for over 90% of new capacity on the U.S. grid in 2024. And in contrast, the cost of building a new combined cycle gas turbine has reached a 10-year high. All right, just last week, the American people sent a message, didn't they? That affordability was their top concern. In response to the Trump administration's reckless taking cheap, clean, reliable power off the grid, Americans voted in key races across the country for candidates with actual plans to bring affordable energy online faster to drive down the cost of living. And at the climate conference COP30, the Seek Institute is on the ground helping to plan for the future, to make sure we lower costs, that we deliver on our climate goals, we cut pollution. And these leaders standing here intend to deliver on that, notwithstanding the headwinds. We have a model of how we do this, thanks to Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. She is America's speaker. She has always kept front and center the cost of living for hardworking families. You heard her talk about the moral obligation that we have to our communities, our neighbors, our children, and future generations. And that's what this is all about. I salute her for her unflagging leadership when it comes to keeping affordability, the climate, clean air, and clean water always at the fore. And she's had champions marching along beside her like Doris Matsui, he's going to speak next, of California, a long-standing member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, a leader on the Seek Institute and Seek Board who understands the moral obligation we have to our kids and future generations. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with these wonderful people behind me here. And I also have to say that there's not enough said about Speaker Pelosi, and I will associate myself with the remarks of the previous members, but we could never have gone as far as we've had in this Congress without the leadership of Speaker Pelosi. We can speak on and on about that, but I know that Nancy doesn't like us to speak about her. But, like today, we're supposed to be in Brazil. That's where we're supposed to be. And dozens of House and Senate Democrats were prepared and scheduled to represent the United States at COP30, which is a UN climate summit. But Republicans held the House out of session for a record shutdown, and so we were unable to go. But now we feel very committed, even though we weren't there, that we must stand up and move forward. Now, this is especially concerning because in the first time in history, the United States was not really represented. The Trump administration did not send a federal delegation to the UN Climate Change Summit. And so, instead of choosing, they chose to boycott the entire summit. And let me be blunt. This is a national disgrace. When the United States doesn't show up, we cede leadership to other countries. We sell out our children's future by walking away from the table, by walking away when the future is being decided. President Trump has called climate change a hoax. He's pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement. He's rolled back pollution regulations on fossil fuels. And he's blocking clean energy projects across the country, forcing utilities to keep expensive coal plants online, and sending electricity bills skyrocketing, all just to boost fossil fuel. That harms our public health. It raises the cost of living for families, and it puts Americans more at risk from natural disasters. And the fossil fuel industry paid him $1 billion to do it. Maybe that's why he refused to pay SNAP benefits during the shutdown, even while he kept pushing for new oil drilling permits. I want to send a clear message to America and to our allies around the world. President Trump does not represent America. The American people know climate change, the climate crisis is real. They know it's an existential threat that we must confront with urgency and ingenuity. They expect their leaders to meet the moment, not boycott it. Seek Institute helped put together a powerful congressional delegation to meet with other countries and with civil society to show plainly that America has leaders who arise to meet the challenge. That is what responsible leadership is all about: to show up, negotiate, build coalitions, and to have solutions that lower costs and preserve our future. America will return. The question is not if, but when. And when we do, we'll come back stronger and more determined than ever to lead the fight against climate change. So even as President Trump tries to drag us backward, we know state and local governments across America are really showing the way forward. American businesses, from Silicon Valley to Main Street, are betting big on clean energy because they know that clean energy is the future. So here's my message to our friends and partners around the world. America has leaders who understand the stakes. We know the science. We feel the urgency. We will keep fighting to cut pollution, to strengthen our healthcare system against climate threats, and to strive to drive down the cost of living through clean, reliable, affordable energy. You know, the choice before us is simple: show up and lead, or step back and let others write the future for us. We choose to lead, and we will keep fighting to make sure the United States does too. Now, I want to turn this over to another one of our champions here, who has been very involved in the private sector and also government and liaising all of this. And so he's one of our leaders in the Seek Coalition. I'd like to present Sean Casten.
Thank you, Doris. You know, Abraham Lincoln, savior of our country, father of the Republican Party, famously said that the purpose of government is to do what the people can't rightfully do for themselves. And I can't tell you how proud I am to be standing with this group of public servants who understand that that is the purpose of government, and who all in various ways have dedicated their life to making sure that government does for the people what they can't do for themselves. It makes me sad that people with that vision are currently in the minority in the House, but it gives me great optimism that these people are here. It's also worth noting, and I think Kathy Castor had mentioned this group of people here, plus Sheldon Whitehouse, would have been the entirety of the U.S. federal presence in COP. We did not have a budget from the House to travel to that trip. We did not have money from the State Department. We did not have the kind of diplomatic support that normally happens when you travel as a representative of the government, and yet everybody here was committed to going because we knew how important our voice would be, because this is an enormously important COP. We're sailing into this knowing that we are on the verge of, if we've not already overshot, 1.5 degrees of warming, which is the point at which all of our scientists have said we hit irreversible tipping points and we cannot avoid the worst effects of climate change. In order to stay under that level, every country has to commit to NDCs, these national commitments that are sufficient to stay below that level. The collective NDCs are too low. The countries that have made those pledges are not living up to those pledges, and there's a lot of cat herding that's going on at COP to try to get that done. The United States, of course, by pulling out, doesn't even have NDCs anymore. One would hope, maybe one would fear, that when the United States steps back from a position of global leadership, the Chinese would step up. What we're actually seeing is the Chinese committing to much less ambitious targets than we know they're capable of, and not filling that void, which requires some diplomatic pressure from those in a position of leadership that's there. There's also a subtext going on at this COP. facilitated but not exclusively caused by the United States pullout of what is the future of multilateralism. Does the rules-based international order still survive? And if it doesn't, why should any country sacrifice their own narrow short-term self-interest for the collective good, for making sure that they are doing for the people what the people can't rightfully do for themselves? The United States, and specifically the Trump administration, is the cause of much of that problem. The United States is also the only country that can potentially solve it, because of our presence, because of our history, because of our scale, and we need to get back there. And I say that because I want to close with a bit of hope. As much as we are failing as a nation to live up to the urgency of this moment, the private sector folks who are there, the state officials who are there, can look proudly and say what the United States has actually done, often in spite of our energy policy, not because of it, is we've seen no growth in oil consumption in the United States in the last 15 years. We've seen a collapse in coal consumption. We've seen a surge in renewable energy generation. As Kathy Castor mentioned, virtually all of the new generation coming onto our grid is renewable. The fastest growing vehicle segment is electric vehicles. Natural gas is increasingly an export commodity because it can't compete in the United States. Those things are all happening because clean energy is cheap energy. And what you got to understand is Donald Trump, Secretary Wright, Secretary Burgum, they don't oppose clean energy because they hate the environment. They don't oppose clean energy because they're anti-woke. They oppose clean energy because, like all mediocre men, they fear competition. Yeah. These people made their money selling oil and gas. Donald Trump's family depends increasingly and illegally on money from the Saudis, from the Qataris, from the Emiratis, who not only want to make sure that we continue to use oil, but they want to make sure that the price of oil is high. What scares the dickens out of them is that competitive markets might come along and offer a cheaper alternative. And as soon as we can get back to a world where United States energy policy puts the interests of consumers over the interests of producers, we're going to start kicking some patukas. And that patukas kicking is already happening, not fast enough. So I'm sorry we're not with our friends in COP. I am grateful to everybody who was able to be there. And I would just ask everybody here to keep fighting for competitive markets, keep fighting for the environment. And in the words of Dr. John, winners don't never quit. So keep on winning. I often say that the only good thing Donald Trump has ever done for our country is encourage good people to get into public service. And I am, a great example of that coming up is my colleague Yasmin Ansari, who was a representative to the United Nations, has dedicated her life to climate change. Could have done a lot of things other than this, but felt the calling in this moment, and we're lucky to have her as a member of our team. Yasmin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yasmin Ansari. I proudly represent Phoenix, Glendale, and Guadalupe in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is an honor to be here. Exactly 10 years ago, I was preparing to go to my very first COP, COP21 in Paris, when I was serving as an advisor on former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's climate team. I can tell you firsthand that without the leadership of the United States, former President Barack Obama, Speaker Pelosi, and so many of the people behind me, the Paris Climate Agreement never would have happened. It was the immense amount of work of the Obama administration, the work to cooperate with China, to make that historic agreement happen, where nearly every single country in the world committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in line with science. And what has happened since then, with Donald Trump leading the charge with oil and gas companies, is an absolute disgrace and abdication of the United States' responsibility in the world. I have dedicated my life to climate change and solving and addressing the climate crisis ever since then, because it truly is the defining issue of our time. It is a jobs issue, it is an economic issue, it is a moral issue, and it is a national security issue for our country. It was actually the United States military apparatus decades ago, the U.S. Navy, that drew attention to climate change as a threat multiplier and all of the impacts that it would have on us that we're seeing many of today, including climate refugees, a rise in conflict, and asylum seekers, and so many issues that we are seeing are direct results of climate catastrophes. Following the first Trump administration's withdrawal of the Paris Climate Agreement, I decided to get more involved and run for office myself. And I can again tell you firsthand, as a Phoenix City Councilwoman, helping to lead the 5th largest and fastest growing city in the country, if it was not for the leadership of the people behind me, Congresswoman Castor, the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, it would have been extremely difficult for cities and states around the country to make the commitments that they have made and follow through with them. When the first Trump administration pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, everyone stepped up. We said, we are still in. American people, cities, states, companies, and committed to maintaining those commitments. In Phoenix, Arizona, we are on the front lines of climate change. We have extreme heat challenges. We have air pollution issues. We have a water security issue. But we have still made some of the boldest commitments, and we're following through with them thanks to leadership that happened here at the federal level. We have one of the most ambitious fleet transition plans in the United States, ordered our first set of electric buses thanks to these investments, established the country's first ever publicly funded Office of Heat Response and Mitigation. This is how the United States fought back and will continue to fight back. Now, this time we know Donald Trump and the oil and gas industry, they've come back with a vengeance. As the chair of the subcommittee on the Natural Resources Committee for Energy and Mineral Resources, we see this at every single hearing that we have. Republicans want to talk a big game about bringing costs down and diversity of energy portfolio, yet every single hearing, all they want to do is talk about expanding oil and gas, expanding offshore drilling, and completely scrapping any sort of clean energy. That's not going to bring costs down for the American people. As I said at the beginning, climate change is an economic issue, and climate solutions are going to make life more affordable for everyday Americans. So I'll end on saying that it is a disgrace that the United States is not at COP this year, that there's no federal presence representing the United States of America on the world stage when every other country in the world is present at COP. But as we always do, we will continue the work on the ground here. We will come back stronger than ever, and we will make sure to end the corruption that is making life so much more expensive for the American people. With that, it is my honor to return to Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, who I've long admired and again has been a lifelong advocate for climate policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you see, even in our freshman class, we have tremendous leadership in this fight for saving the planet for the children. As the members were speaking, I'm so proud of all the work that they have done. I was remembering Mr. Caston talking to the King of Spain about leading the discussion in Spain with the King of Spain when the COP was there. Just all the members having a leading role. And when we were in Onga several years ago, heads of state would come over to me and say, how did you all pass the first bill, the Waxman-Markey bill? How did you pass that? And then IRA as well. And my response to them is because of the outside mobilization. Internally, we can do our maneuvering and bring our ideas to the fore, but without the outside mobilization, I want to thank all of the groups that are here saying that climate can't wait. I see some other Reform Jews for Climate Justice. This is a religious issue. Protect people, not polluters. Protect people, not polluters. That reminds me of how the president has projected his own characteristics onto this. He's a big projector. You know, he'll say people are this or people are that when it's really himself he's talking about. And he has said of this, when we were at Climate Week, many of us were at Climate Week a few weeks ago in New York, he pronounced that during Climate Week that this was a con job. This is a scam. No, Mr. President, you are projecting again. You are the con job. You are the scam. You do not believe in science or responsibility or anything, and it's all about money in the pocket of your friends and billionaires, as we have seen even with health care. But I also want to acknowledge two members who are with us, April Delaney and Maxine Dexter. They were prepared to go also to Brazil, and they and the other members stand ready to answer any questions on the subject that you may have. And again, I want to just say about Kathy Castor at the table, because as I say, the outside mobilization is so important. At the table, she had environmentalists and labor and business, religious community and scientists, farmers and venture capitalists, every aspect of what goes on.
Learn from you.
And then we also, some of us on the immigration issue had traveled to the Northern Triangle a few years ago, and what we found there is one of the reasons people were migrating to the United States is what has been mentioned, and that is they had a drought, the people couldn't farm, so they didn't have a job, and they didn't have the food that farming would produce. Hence, they were coming to the United States. So this is, again, as the Congresswoman mentioned, a migration issue, which is an economic issue. So this is, again, economic, as Congresswoman Castor said. It is not only a moral issue, but it is an affordability issue as well. Any questions on the subject for our colleagues? Where? See? Yes, sir. There. I thought I saw someone over there. No? No questions on the subject? No. 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 Yes, okay.
Speaker Meredith Pelosi, is it because of the government shutdown that you could not travel to Brazil?
Well, it was one of the reasons. The other reason being, well, let's just say, and it has been addressed by my colleagues, Mr. Huffman addressed it, they would not provide what we would normally, when we would go to these meetings, we would have transportation that would facilitate that. We would have security. And a large number of members of Congress go someplace, it's really important to have security. And we always have, but they withheld all of that. So we had to put together our own arrangement for that, which we did. And that's why I'm so proud of this group. We raised the money to meet the needs that we had, but having the vote this week, the shutdown is one thing, but having the vote was another reason. Did anyone want to speak to that?
That's true.
That's it. Anybody? Okay. Well, that's it. Hearing no other questions, thank you all so much for coming. And again, it's so really important. And just thinking in terms of Jane Goodall again, it was so inspiring to hear how she committed her life not only to studying the chimpanzees, to going from that to saving the planet as God's creation. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I know. Yeah, so I saw you. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, my fellow.
Yeah.
It could be used to justify Mexico bombing Smith & Wesson ships.
That didn't matter.
Right? They're selling a product that's not solely intended to kill, but it kills people, and if it's in international waters, you can. Right?
So when this goes forward,
Are you going to go straight to Representative?
I got to go to the office first.
do you have a moment?
Sort of, yes. A moment.
About the Lincoln County.
John is, what he's doing right now is actually stepping forward financing on the IRA deals with Tom Steyer. Like coming together, galvanized, but so important. I think that so far they have not innovative way for this.
forward to it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
All right.
I could bring it to the hill. That would be easy. Some people. And there's a lot of innovators. There's a lot of innovators out there, and that's how we're going to get out of this, right? And we've got to have multilateral engagements and stuff.
Congresswoman, I wanted to see if I could get you for a minute.
He did not.
Okay. When did you end up building?